Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the latest Lilja and Lou podcast. We haven't been up for a couple of weeks, and a lot of stuff has happened, so we've got a jam-packed show. We've got a ton of Stephen King news. Hans has got a great interview with the showrunners from Haven. Hans and I are going to review the Cujo Blu-ray, and we're going to answer some viewer questions. So
fire up your generators, get yourself comfy and old Sparky, and strap yourself in.
And let's get ready for the big ride. How are you doing there, Hans?
I'm fine. It's nice to be back.
Absolutely. And coincidentally enough, it's raining in Sweden and in Canada, so it's just perfect weather for a Stephen King podcast.
Yeah.
All right?
Welcome, welcome. Do not fear the door that lies before you. We will protect you. We are your guides, Hans and Lou, and we will give you the latest in Stephen King news. But before we do so, you must prove yourself worthy. You must open the door and join us in the death room.
What's up in the news? Do you want to go for the first item, Ray Bradbury, or do you want me to do it?
You can do that with the quote. If you want to quote Stephen, it's better than you.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Ray Bradbury, a great American writer, passed away at the age of 91 on June 6, 2012. He's a writer that I really enjoyed reading when I was growing up. Martian Chronicles, Something Wicked This Way Comes, so many other great stories, The Sound of Thunder. Really enjoyed him. He was a very poetic writer, and he really captured the voice of small-town America back in those days, in the early 50s and 60s. And it was fitting that poetic, I guess you could say, that he passed away during the transit of Venus, which happened at the same time as Venus was visible passing across the face of the sun. So that was quite poetic. And Stephen King himself has noted many times that Ray Bradbury was a favorite writer of his, and he said in a prepared statement that he praised the power of Bradbury's works, and he said, "The sound I hear today is the thunder of a giant's footsteps fading away, but the novels and stories remain in all their resonance and strange beauty." So, did you read Bradbury at all? Or are you familiar
Actually, I didn't, but I've heard his name a lot, but I haven't read any of his books.
Okay, so maybe now it's time that you did.
Yeah, definitely. It's never too late.
He's a great writer, and I would recommend checking out the movie Something Wicked Way This Comes. The book's much better, as usual, but the movie's it's a pretty good movie, too. Something definitely hunting up. Okay.
Do you know if he was sick, or I hadn't heard that he was?
He's had health problems for quite a while, but I mean, basically 91 years of age. It's just, I just think his clock ran out, that's all.
Yeah. Next up is Joyland has finally gotten a date. It will be published in June next year. And the plot is like this. Set in a small town, North Carolina amusement park in 1973, Joyland tells the story of a summer in which college student Devin Jones comes to work at the Carney and confronts the legacy of a vicious murder, the fate of a dying child, and the way both will change his life forever. Sounds interesting.
Yes, and it sounds a lot like Something Wicked This Way Comes, actually, which is interesting. So, yeah, I'm really looking forward to this. It seems to have all the elements of a great Stephen King story, mixing a carnival with a murder, and of course, when he has children in his stories, it's usually something very special as well.
Yeah, and this one will be published by Hard Case Crime that published the Colorado Kid.
Yes, and the editor of that is somebody that you had an interview with recently, too.
Yes, exactly. I talked to him about season 3 of Haven when I did the interview.
That's right. Charles Ardai is his name, and he's also one of the producers on the Haven TV series. And just an additional item there, I just wanted to send a shout-out to Bev Vincent, who we had on previous podcasts already. He tweeted about this, and I found it an interesting article. It's about abandoned amusement parks, and one of them just happens to be named Joyland. So I don't know if that was the inspiration for King picking that name, but we'll include a link to that, and you can go through that. There's about 10 of these abandoned amusement parks all over the world, and they're very eerie looking, and it's an interesting article.
Yeah. An abandoned amusement park has to be scary, right?
Has to be.
Can't be much fun there.
That's right. All right, so we've mentioned this a couple times already, but it sounds like the casting for Carrie has rounded out the remake. We already had Chloe Moretz listed as Carrie White, and she's been in other movies such as Kick-Ass, Hugo, one of the Amityville horror remakes, and she was also in the remake of, I believe it's a Swedish film, Hans, is Let the Right One In, and the North American version was called Let Me In.
Correct.
Yes, so a very good movie.
Yeah, it's written by our Swedish version of Stephen King, John Ajvide.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So we have a Swedish Stephen King version.
Oh, excellent. Rest of the cast, Juliana Morris as Carrie's mom, and she's been in Boogie Nights, Big Lebowski, and Hannibal. Some of the newer comers are playing classmates. Gabrielle Wilde as Sue Snell, which was the role that Eamon Erming had in the original Carrie. Ansel Elgort as Sue's boyfriend, Tommy Ross, the role originally played by William Catt. And we also have Alex Russell, who you may know from the recent Chronicle movie that was a bit of a hit last year and has just come out on DVD. And he's the school bully, which I guess will be what kind of the role that John Travolta had. We have Judy Greer as the gym teacher. That was the role that Betty Buckley had in the original one, and she's done voice work on Archer and Family Guy, and she's been on some other TV shows as well. And finally, then this last piece of casting, Hans, I don't know if this has been confirmed or not, Ivana Baquero, who is in one of my favorite all-time movies, and she played Ophelia in Guillermo del Toro's Pan's Labyrinth, and so she was a little girl in that movie. She was originally
Up for the
role of Carrie, but that went to Chloe Moretz, and now the rumor is that she might get the role of Chris, which was the role that Nancy Ellen had in the original. So I don't know if I couldn't confirm if that was verified or not.
I think I read that she was in talks about the role. I don't know if it's confirmed either.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we've mentioned this a couple of times now, but this seems like a very impressive cast, both in front and behind the camera. So I'm really looking forward to this.
And I was a bit skeptic at first, but I'm going more and more for that this can actually be a good movie. But we'll have to see.
Yep.
Yeah. Next item, we have something new by Stephen King, a short story called In the Tall Grass that he's written with his son, Joe Hill. And they are working very well together, if you ask me.
Yeah.
The first part was out in Esquire, the June and July issue. And the last part will be in the August issue. So we don't know how the story ends, but I like this a lot.
Yes, it's old-time, very early style Stephen King. You're thinking like The Long Walk and The Raft. It's very primitive. And yeah. I don't know how they wrote the story together, whether Steve wrote one part and Joe wrote the other, but just judging on this part, I could not tell who wrote which parts of the story so far.
I think I read that they actually wrote some pieces and then sent it to the other, and so they wrote different parts in the entire story. So I don't think one of them wrote this first one and the other one wrote the second. I think they collaborated all through.
Right. Well,
and they work perfectly together, as you say. You can't figure out whether one end and the other one starts. So It works very well.
Yeah. So great story. I'm really looking forward to part 2.
Yeah, me too.
Okay. And up next we have, boy, I tell you, every time I turn around, it seems like there's another announcement about some sort of movie being made based on one of King's works. After him being quiet the last couple of years, Hollywood has seemingly rediscovered Stephen King. So first up, we've got A Good Marriage, which is from Stephen King's recent anthology collection, Full Dark, No Stars. And for those of you who might not have read the story, this is an excellent story for adaptation to make a movie. And it basically revolves around a wife. Darcy Anderson discovers her husband has been keeping an especially terrible secret for years. What happens when, on a perfectly ordinary evening, all the things you believed in and took for granted are turned upside down? What do you do and who do you call on when you discover that your good marriage has been built on a nightmarish foundation of torture and murder? Woo! That's a great premise for a movie.
Yes, I love this story. Mm-hmm. I think it's definitely the best one in that book. My one concern is that it might actually be too disturbing to translate to a movie, and I'm afraid they might tone it down a bit to make it viewable.
I'm not too sure if I can agree with you there, because the core of the movie is not really the story is not the horror, but it's really the discovery that your partner could keep such a terrible secret from you in your marriage, and
Yeah.
and that's really rich material for a movie. I'm really excited about this. I think this can be a pretty fantastic Oscar caliber film if it's done properly.
Yeah, I agree, definitely. It's really one of his top 5 best stories, if you ask me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's actually one interesting connection to Sweden in this one.
Isn't there always?
I don't know if you remember. Yeah, isn't there always? Sweden is always there somewhere. I think it was Hodder and Stoughton in England that made trailers for each of the stories when they promoted the book that was released on YouTube. And the one for this particular one was actually done by a Swedish team with a Swedish actor.
Oh, cool.
So that's worth checking out. I can put a link to it on my site for everyone to check it out.
Very good.
Yeah. The next thing is also movie news. And finally, there's been a lot of speculation about the remake of It. And it now seems that Warner has decided to make 2 movies of it. And the director, Cary Fukunga?
Sounds good to
me. Yeah, I hope it does to him as well.
Glad you got to say it, not me.
I haven't actually seen anything he's done, so I can't say if he's right to do this, but I feel glad that Warner has decided to make 2 movies, and it looks like they want to do this one right, so I think this can be good.
I hope so too. I have a couple issues with the story in itself. I know it's one of the more popular King books, but I'm never a big fan of stories where characters forget what they've done. So that's always been a problem for me with that book, even though I think it's been really well done. And since the TV series, Tim Curry did such a iconic turn as Pennywise the Clown, it's kind of now become like a spoof thing, like I think it was sort of the inspiration for the clown in the Simpsons and things like that. So I don't know if people can take it very seriously anymore. As for the director, he's directed a foreign film that I've never seen. It's called Sin Hombre, and he's also done a recent adaptation of a Jane Austen story. So he's got a couple of major projects under his belt.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that he can do well with this. It's an interesting phenomenon that studios seem to be going for 2-part movies now.
Yeah.
I assume this is more driven by economics than anything else.
Yeah.
But it's good for Stephen King books, especially because they're so long. We've seen them time and time again try to condense one of his books into movies, and the results are often varied. The better movies seem to be ones based on his short stories and novellas.
Yeah, and I think It is one of the books that can really benefit from the special effects you can accomplish today. I think that could really work for the movie if they make that right. I think that could be really great.
Yeah, that's a very good comment, and we'll touch upon that when we get into our Cujo review, but horror movies, probably out of any genre, benefit quite a bit from the improved special effects. Unfortunately, there's a tendency to go overboard with the special effects, but nothing can take you out of a horror movie more than a bad effect. So I'm hoping that, they can do some really cool stuff with the It remake, but we'll have to see how that plays out. And another piece of movie news is a movie based on the Stephen King short story,
The 10 O'Clock People,
which if you've ever seen John Carpenter's They Live, this is very much the same type of premise, but instead of sunglasses allowing you to see aliens, it's people who smoke at on a 10 o'clock coffee break kind of thing, and because of that, they become aware of an alien invasion. So this could be a fun movie. I think this one's definitely has more of a B movie sensibility about it.
Yeah.
The person attached to the project is Tom Holland. You may know him. He did the TV miniseries of The Langoliers, the Stephen King book, and he also did the movie version of Thinner. And speaking of movies that would benefit from better effect, Thinner would probably qualify for that.
Yeah, but I actually like both Thinner and Langoliers pretty much, even though the special effects hasn't aged very well maybe, but I like them still. I think they're pretty good.
Okay. This could be a fun movie.
Yeah, I think it has little Tales from the Dark Side and Twilight Zone vibe over it.
Yeah.
And we can also mention that Thinner is being released on Blu-ray.
Oh, yes. That's right.
I think it was this fall, August maybe.
Yeah, there's another movie I haven't seen in a long time. So.
Yeah. So that could be worth checking out.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, next item. I don't know if this qualifies as news, but we'll put it in here anyway. You remember I had a vote on the site where I wanted 10,000 fans to vote on their favorite Stephen King book. Finally, we have 10,000 votes.
Woohoo!
And the results are in.
Congratulations. That's very impressive to get that many votes.
Yeah. I was surprised that it looked dark for a while, but it took
Congrats
off.
to you for suggesting it, and congrats to the fans for taking the time to vote on it.
Yeah, and I know a lot of fans had problem with selecting one book. And I have that as well, but it's done. And I don't know if should we comment? Should we go from number 5 and up, maybe?
Sure.
On 5th place is The Green Mile, which isn't that surprising, if you ask me. It's a great book.
Yeah, a great book, great movie. Love it.
Yeah, maybe the movie helped the book.
Perhaps, yeah.
As well, yeah. On 4th place, we have Salem's Lot. Not that surprising either.
No. Very economical story in terms of Stephen King books, but it does a great turn on the whole vampire story.
Yeah. 3rd place is The Shining. None of the top 5 is very surprising, but I think Shining is great, and I think maybe it got some help from Doctor Sleep coming up soon.
Yeah, and the movie versions and the miniseries versions as well, yeah.
Yeah.
Here's Johnny.
Exactly. My biggest surprise was that the number 1 and number 2 spot got so much of the votes. On 2nd place, we have It, as we have talked about, and that one got 1,435 votes of the 10,000. And the number 1 spot was The Stand, and it got 2,390 votes, almost 25% of the votes.
Yeah.
And I wasn't surprised that The Stand and It got the top positions, but I was a bit surprised that they got so many votes compared to The Shining at number 3 only got 440 votes. So number 2, It had almost 1,000 more votes than the 3rd place.
That is very interesting. I don't have a reason for it. I can only assume because these 2 books both had TV miniseries based on them. And I think there's an element of they both touched on the public awareness, and for some reason that the other books didn't. Because I agree with you. Like I would have thought The Shining would have gotten a lot more votes as well. But
yeah.
Yeah.
And one comment that a few of my readers had was a very good comment, that it's hard to compare a book like The Stand that's been out since 87, I think, and like a book that was released just 1 year ago. The Stand has been read by so many more, so
Yep.
if you only read like 2 Stephen King books, you probably had read The Stand, so
yeah,
that might help it.
Yeah, it might have been good to know how many books out of the ones that were eligible that people had read as well. But,
yeah. But it's hard to get a voting like this totally fair.
Yeah. The biggest surprise for me was the Tommyknockers being so high, because I think that's one of his worst books, and I think he's acknowledged that as well. So that one really surprised me. Pleasant surprise was how high Dumaki was, because that's a relatively new book. So that was number 10. So, and I was also surprised at how high Pet Sematary was, because that's a pretty dark book. But I guess Stephen King readers like dark stuff.
Yeah, they do. And my favorite book, The Long Walk, only made it to the 17th place. I'm a little bit disappointed about that.
I saw that. I'm actually surprised it's that high. I was wondering if you did a little ballot stuffing there, Hans.
No. And I would have placed it in the top 5.
That might have been a bit too obvious.
Yeah. I'm also surprised by, when you compare the Dark Tower books, you have the first Dark Tower book, which many call hard book to get through.
Yep.
It was actually the best placed Dark Tower book it placed number 8. And followed by that on place 9 was the 4th Dark Tower, Wizard and Glass, which is, in my opinion, is the weakest of the Dark Tower books. So
yeah, same here. But I guess people like a good romance story.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
Well, it was an interesting vote. I guess I have gotten some suggestions that we should do the same with movies or short stories or characters, and so we might do another one of these in the future.
Yeah, that'd be a lot of fun. Characters would be a good one. There's so many great characters. Yeah, I like you. I'm really kind of stunned at how many votes The Stand and It had as compared to the rest of the books. That's very interesting.
And there was actually 3 books that didn't get one single vote, and they were The Plant, and Fateful. So I guess those 3 are the ones that people like the least.
Or it's just that is only out on ebook, and maybe some people just haven't gotten around to reading it. It's not a bad story. Faithful is really not a book. It's more of a journal about the Boston's Red Sox. And so if you're not a Red Sox fan, I guess you're not going to read that one.
Yeah.
And the Plant was another one that was also done as an ebook, or you mailed in at that time. And I don't think he ever finished that story, so that may be why.
Yeah.
It hasn't gotten any votes either.
Correct. The real book that got the least votes are, if you want to count Blockade Billy, it was the last book that got 2 votes. So it was the last book that got votes. Just After Sunset only got 4 votes. Blaze, Roadwork only got 5 votes. So there are some books there that aren't that popular.
More people need to get out and read them.
Yeah, exactly.
Reevaluate their list.
Yeah, and it's always hard. I mean, if you're just going to pick one book, you might like the others as well, but you can't vote for them all.
No. Okay, so that is the news for this installment. Lots of news again. Mr. King is making us busy and a lot of people in Hollywood busy as well, which is good.
Yeah.
So up next, Hans has a treat for you Haven fans. He was able to do an interview with producers and writers of Haven, and they got to talk about Season 3 as well. So Hans, how did you feel the interview went?
It went great. Actually, I was just going to talk to Jim Dunn and Sam Ernst, co-creators and producers of the show. But as fate had it, Charles Ardai, producer, editor, and also writer of a couple of episodes, was in town and was happy to sit in on the interview. So it was nice to talk to him too, since he's actually the man behind the publication of the book, The Colorado Kid. So that was nice, and the interview went great. I hope you all enjoy it.
Yes, and it was great to get Charles on as well, and hopefully we can get him on again next year, because he's also, the Hard Case Crimes is also the company that is going to be releasing Joyland next June.
Exactly. Give him a call about that as well later on.
And here is the interview.
So, Season 3 is on the way. Did you ever think there would be a Season 3?
We barely thought there would be a Season 1.
It took, I think Jim and I came up with the idea for, first of all, I should say, my name's Sam Ernst. I'm the creator. That's Jim Dunn. He's riding my coattails, says he's also the co-creator. And then Charles Ardai is right next to me, who actually published the original book, The Colorado Kid, on which Haven is based.
I have spoken with Charles on email some.
Yes, absolutely. It's a pleasure to see you in the flesh.
Yeah, same here.
It's a pleasure to see your highly pixelated flesh.
Yeah.
Jim and I, when we first read the book, was probably 2006. Is that right?
I think, yeah.
Probably late 2005. We published in October 2005, so it's probably...
I think we got it in January of 2006.
Okay, so January 2006 we got it. Then we started talking to the producers here, and we came up with an idea, and we pitched it to Charles, who we didn't know, just some voice on that phone.
Yeah.
And then we pitched it to him, and then he said, we had, in Hollywood, everything gets filtered so many times that by the time we heard the story, we were told, it's not a supernatural book, don't put anything supernatural in it. Stephen King does not want anything supernatural. I don't know when but at some point after we pitched it to Charles, and Charles called Stephen and said, they have this idea, and Stephen said, am I telling this right? Where's the supernatural thing?
Yeah.
Actually say it to me, but I heard the same thing.
Okay. So then we went back, came up with the supernatural thing, and then pitched that to Charles, and Charles didn't hate it. And then Stephen liked it.
Or if he did, he at least passed it along.
Right.
But it was great.
And that was 2006. And we didn't start shooting until
April 2010.
Yeah.
So it was
4 years, 4 or 5 years.
So for us, this is sort of Season 7 already.
Exactly. This is season 6, 7, somewhere in there. So yes, it's a miracle to be in the 3rd season of a TV show no matter what show, no matter what network, that in and of itself is a miracle.
Yeah. And you have this one is slated for the fall instead of summer. How come?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's a network decision based on their scheduling and what they're trying to do. Really has almost nothing to do with us. We have to shoot in the summer.
The window of opportunity to shoot in Nova Scotia is not big.
Yeah.
You know, the weather's only good for a few months of the year.
So, and when we started shooting, we did not know exactly when we would be airing. I'm not sure Syfy did yet either. And so the decision was made sometime after that.
There was some talk of this slot in season 1 of us airing in the fall.
That's right.
And what's interesting is now I think we are airing roughly simultaneously worldwide at this point. I think we're airing fall, winter everywhere we run.
Okay. Yeah. Do you think the show will be received differently now that it's a fall season instead of a summer season?
It's an object of much debate. You know, everyone, it's all a lot of educated guesses, and as well educated as people try to be about it, it still amounts to a guess of what people want to watch when. I think because it's a third season show, a lot of the people are going to seek us out and watch it.
So.
We certainly hope so.
Yeah.
We'll find out.
Yeah.
In other words, we have no idea. It's the short answer.
Yeah. In the second season, it was more was revealed about what's going on in Haven. Did you get a little bit scared that maybe you wouldn't get the third season and you wanted the fans to know more? Or
I think some of our fans were afraid that we wouldn't, because I remember after this, there've been a lot of discussions from the beginning how much to reveal and when. And the decision was made at very high levels to not reveal too much. In the original pilot, Jim and I had a lot more reveals in the very original pilot that we actually wrote for ABC. And then it was decided to be less serialized. And so we dialed that back. And after the end of this first season, when we had the big cliffhanger, someone emailed or posted or tweeted or Facebook or something said, what would have happened if you had been canceled? Did you shoot an alternate ending? And the answer is no, we barely had enough time to shoot the ending that we wrote. But the show has progressively gotten a little more serialized. In season 2, we went somewhat more. And this season, we have a lot going down.
Yeah.
We've been very careful to make sure that new viewers can jump right in.
Yeah.
So we've restated a lot of things and made it so that hopefully people can jump in now.
And dedicated fans of the show, I think, are going to the sort of curve of things we reveal about what's going on just keeps climbing. In this season, you learn a lot more about what's going on in Haven.
yeah. Do you have a planned ending for the show?
Yeah. For the season or the series? And the answer to both of those things is yes.
Yeah. And they are not the same?
No, I hope not.
We hope not, yeah.
Well, I will tell you this. If we get if season 3 is our last, we're going to have a lot of disappointed fans, and because we answer a lot of questions this season.
Yeah.
And by the end of the season, we answer all the questions we raise in the beginning of the season. We answer by the end.
Yeah.
But of course, we raise all new questions and peel back another layer. And that's where we will be if we get canceled.
Would you prefer to have like when Lost aired and they decided we have 3 more seasons? So they could plan an ending, or would you prefer to keep trying to get more and more seasons?
I think we would like as many as possible, but we would be very happy if we knew which one was going to be our last one.
Yeah, there's sort of in our structure that we see for the series, there's parts where we can expand. You know, we can add new beats or reveal things at a slower pace. So if we got more seasons, it would be great. But knowing that last season would really be helpful.
Yeah. Or do you think you will make that decision ahead of time yourself if station doesn't, that you say this will be our last season, so you can do a proper ending?
That is a creative luxury that my mortgage cannot afford.
It's a creative luxury that very few people in the business are ever given.
Yeah.
Yes.
You might decide it's done, but if
If the
other
network
people do not, then okay, well, you're done.
If the network wants more shows, the network will get more shows.
Yeah.
And in any event, if you know what your last season is and you try very well, it doesn't always work out in terms of the storytelling, as, for example, it didn't for Lost.
Yeah.
I don't think people this ending Lost of a great creative success.
Yeah.
That's true.
So will we see a guest star this season?
Yes, we have. Well, first of all, we We've added 3 characters.
Okay.
And then we are trying to stunt cast some very important roles this season.
Those aren't quite locked
Those
down
aren't
yet,
quite locked in.
unfortunately.
Yeah, but we are very excited about one in particular, who I can't tell you, but as a sci-fi geek that we all are, that person would be very exciting to get, and we're trying.
Okay.
The problem though, is then when it turns out to be somebody nobody's ever heard of, you're unable to get said person.
Okay. Will Edge be back as Dwight?
Absolutely, we love Edge. Did you like Edge?
Yes, I liked him. I think his character was very good.
We are actually we like that character a lot, and the funny thing is, he was not initially conceived until we found out we were going to be on After Wrestling.
Yeah.
And then we thought, well, are there any good wrestlers? And then, in the biggest bit of serendipity or luck ever, the Edge retired the month before, or that month, I think. It was a matter of weeks after he retired that this idea came up, which was a relief because we had seen other wrestlers act. And as it turns out, wrestlers do not make good actors, nor do they make good governors. But Edge, I would not only do I think he's awesome in our show, I might vote for him for governor. So he's great, and we created the role for him because that character was in there in a very minor way, and we expanded it out for him. And then the only reason we brought it back was because we love Edge so much, or we call him Adam Copeland, but he's amazing. And so he's got a great presence on screen, and we're going to do more with him in lots of interesting ways.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that. And I have to ask you, Charles, when they approached you about making a TV series out of the book, what was your first reaction?
Well, the first conversation I had was with a producer here named Adam Frotto, and we talked about how open-ended the book was. And in fact, one of the shows we talked about was Lost, which was on the air at the time, taking some heat because it kept posing questions and not answering them. And I said, we have a book coming out by Stephen King, which is all about unanswered questions. That's the subject Steve wanted to tackle. It was something I was on board with from the beginning. Now, it wasn't particularly important that I was on board. What was important was that Steve was willing to give it a shot. He controlled the film and television rights, and he gave us the creative freedom to really expand on the universe he created, which was something that Sam and Jim took to heart, and with relish, they really created a lot of new material, new characters, but staying true to the core of the book, which is not just a few characters that also appeared in the book, such as the 2 crusty old newspaper guys, but the fundamental premise that strange things happen behind the apparently innocuous white picket fences of a New England town. And that's what Haven's all about.
And actually, mentioning Lost, the book, the town takes place on an island.
That's right. We specifically didn't make it an island because of Lost.
That's right. We couldn't make it an island because of Lost, because it was on. The other thing is the title of the book, The Colorado Kid. We, of course, we start the first episode is all about, oh my God, I'm in this picture with the Colorado Kid. But because we were not to be so serialized, we were reluctant to, or actually we were told to talking about the Colorado Kid. Now that things have shifted, season 3, we will find out not everything, but a lot you need to know about the Colorado Kid.
We're actually going to sort of solve that mystery after all this time.
Yeah.
Wow, I'm glad to hear that.
We are quite literally going to Colorado.
Are you trying to move your series away from the book then? You solve the Colorado Kid murder and then you move on to your own even more?
The Colorado Kid is just one piece in the puzzle, Lilja. One piece.
Okay.
I can say no more.
Yeah. Yeah, because I was asking because I think a lot of fans was surprised when the word came out that there were going to be a TV series based on this tiny little book with no ending.
TV is the perfect medium for a story with no ending.
Yeah.
And I'm not even saying jokingly.
Yeah.
You come back to a TV show week after week, and you want to meet these characters, you want to see them go through interesting stories. You don't want an ending. You want to come back next week and have a new story.
Yeah, and I think you have really succeeded in making the characters grow. And when I watched season 2, I felt more for the characters than I did in the first season. So I think I've been very good at making them more like real persons, if you may.
Well, I think that comes down to the idea that in season 2 we did more serialized stuff, so that you actually had them progress episode to episode, whereas it wasn't just a reset. They actually had stories, and within those stories there are emotional consequences. But because in season 1 we were trying not to tell ongoing stories, it made it hard to we're trying to get the emotion out of the troubled people that we would meet that week. And what became abundantly clear was because we had just met those people, we couldn't get the emotion we wanted. The people we needed to get the emotion was the characters. But we were in our characters, but we were in a box because we couldn't progress their story. But then we decided to progress their story anyway. In season 2, as much as we could, it got better and better. Now in season 3, we've been given permission to go even further. So the story stuff that happens with the characters is bigger in season 3, twice as big, 3 times as big as season 2, I would say.
Yeah.
How many episodes will there be in season 3?
13.
13.
This year we're not doing a Christmas episode this year, so it's actually 13 on the main story arc.
Yeah. Speaking of that Christmas episode, what didn't follow the season ending? It was totally separate, right?
Yeah, it actually sort of dropped into the middle of the season at a particular point. Yeah, the Christmas episode, if you looked at the season arc, was it between episodes 7 and 8?
Maybe it's 7 and 8.
But just to be clear, only in the most minor way.
Only in the most minor way, but
because in season 2 we eliminated a character. It was just all this stuff, but we
set
set
it
up
up.
time.
Yeah, it was designed to be very standalone, but as it happened, we air worldwide generally in the fall, and the air dates were going to land it sort of in the middle of our run for a lot of places that show the series. Yeah. So we kind of engineered so we could drop it in between a couple of the episodes in the middle of the year without disrupting everything else that was going on.
It's one of the challenges of our show that, not in a bad way, it's just one of the realities where we actually pay attention to our foreign audience in a way that a lot of shows don't. Not because we are more virtuous,
Though we are.
but because the foreign buyer was the first one. They were the ones that actually, NBC Universal Foreign was the ones that said, let's make this show. And they were the first people to put money down and to say, let's make it. And so we, as a result, from the very beginning, even though it airs in the U.S. first, although that's less true this year, we have to be mindful when we do something that, first of all, it's going to air here, but then we don't want to put in too many spoilers. How do we control the spoilers so it doesn't get ruined for the foreign market? This is a problem with every serialized show, of course. But we actually think about it while we're doing it because of the nature of our show. And there's a number of shows that are structured the way we are.
It seems to generally be solved in much of the rest of the world by simply pirating the show from the American broadcast and watching it that way.
And vice versa for British shows like Sherlock.
That's right.
I think running it simultaneously is probably going to be good for the ratings overseas.
Yeah, probably. So, what have you heard from Stephen King again after season 2? Any reaction from him?
We don't generally talk about specific episodes, but I suspect that he does watch it. We've talked from time to time, and he seems. We generally don't talk about specific episodes, but I get the sense that he does watch it and has enjoyed it at various points. The last conversations that I had with him were about the new book we're going to be doing next summer called Joyland. No connection between that and the Colorado Kid, or between that and Haven, but I like to think he's a fan of what we do.
Yeah. Are you going to start writing scripts for Joyland now as well?
I think that Joyland's fate as a TV show or a movie is in the hands of Steve's film and TV agent. We'll see what happens, but it does have some elements that are extremely cinematic. So whether we're involved in any way or not, I'm excited to see that adapted.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's what I had. Anything you want to add to the fans? Any groundbreaking news about season 3 you can reveal?
Just that it really is, if you're a fan of the show at all, it is going to be compelling and gripping. It's a roller coaster ride from the get-go. We're running the whole season on a compressed time frame. There's a ticking clock, and it's a lot of fun.
I would say this season is closest to the show as Jim and I originally conceived on my porch in 2006 when we first sat down and talked about it. This season 3 is the closest representation of that show, and I think every show hopefully gets better and matures and figures out who it is and all that stuff. And I think we have. I mean, that's the good news. I think some shows fall off and they kind of lose sight of it. Things happen, and we're going the other way. I mean, for example, X-Files, the godfather of this show in many ways. You know, their second season was better than their first, and their third was better than the second, in my opinion. I'm sure I'll get hate mail from the people who just, but that's my opinion. And I like to think we're doing the same thing. We're just getting better and better, and I really think we're hitting our stride. Jim and I are right now. We interrupted what we were doing right before we got on this call was episode 8, and that we're writing, and it's going to be a killer episode. It takes place in 2.5 hours. Over 2.5 hours. It's fast, it's hard, and it's really cool. And it's a two-parter.
Okay.
We would never have been allowed to do a two-parter, or maybe not. I guess we had talked about it, but now it works. And so it's a two-parter. So it's very exciting to be doing this stuff in season 3. We're not just fortunate, but we're actually creatively completely thrilled and on fire.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you so much for taking time to speak to me.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lilja. We really appreciate all your help getting word about the show.
Yeah, I'll do my best. Let me know if there's anything else I can do.
Thank you.
Okay,
Awesome.
thank you.
Thanks, man.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
So that was a pretty cool interview, Hans. You got some nice little season 3 scoops there, I see.
Yeah, it was very nice. They were very open to talk about the season, and that was fun. So and it's interesting to hear that they already know how the series is going to end.
Direction that they're taking with making the show more serialized, for me, is a big plus because I'm a big fan of serialized TV series. So it sounds like they're really ramping that up this season. That two-parter episode sounds very good, and the whole concept that the whole season's running against a clock of some type, that should mean that things are going to be pretty tense all the way through the season.
Yeah, I'm glad that they are going to solve the Colorado Kid mystery in this one.
I wonder if they're going to solve the mystery of who
Audrey Parker is.
Yeah.
That's something I'm always curious to find out about. Alrighty,
Yeah.
So that's that interview.
This is great. What's our job? We'd like drive around and pick up stiffs or what?
It's time for reviews from the night shift.
Up next, we have a review section. We really don't have anything new to review this week. We did talk about the part 1 of In the Tall Grass, but we don't want to review it. The story's complete, so we'll hold off on that. So there's no reviews this week.
And now, we visit the King Crate and see what Miss Treasures, the Fluffy the Crate creature from Creepshow, has left for us to examine.
Up next is the King Crate, where we try to find forgotten or buried Stephen King treasures, which is hard to do because pretty well everything he does is out and very well known to everybody. But then this one was my suggestion, so if you don't like this segment, you guys can all get mad at me. Hans and I have not talked yet about our reactions to this, but I want to talk about Cujo, the book a little bit, but mostly about the movie. And Cujo was released in August 14th, 1983. The budget was around $5 million. And it took in about $21.2 million. And you have to remember, these are 1983 numbers, so that's a mid-size box office return on a movie of this cost. So, directed by Louis Teague, his famous movies you would probably know are the Romancing the Stone and Jewel of the Nile films. Also did Cat's Eye, which I believe he did shortly after he did Cujo, which was a anthology based on 3 Stephen King short stories: Quitters Incorporated,
The
Ledge, and The General. Thank you. He caught Stephen King's eye with his film The Alligator, and that's how he got mentioned for doing the movie version of Cujo. So let's just do our quick thoughts about what we think about this movie. And what do you think of the movie, Hans? It's been a while since you've seen it.
It's been a while, and it was nice to meet Cujo again. I was actually surprised at the beginning of the movie how it looked like almost a family movie when he chased the rabbit and he jumps in the grass, and it was like, holy crap, have I gotten the wrong movie? So I didn't remember that. So it was, and it's a scary movie. I like it. It's well done, and after listening to the making of documentary that's also on the DVD, you realize that there's a lot of work behind the scenes we see in the movies. One problem I had with the movie is that I don't really get it why Cujo is getting so dirty so quick. It's like when he gets sick, he grows dirt on his fur. I don't know. I didn't get that part. I don't know if it's me, but I can understand that he gets all the messy around the eyes and stuff. But the dirt on the back, I don't really get that.
It's mostly for effect, just to make him look more mental.
It is, but I think it's too much. You react to it as what? Where has he been? Has he crawled
Yeah.
under the house and rolled around in mud? So I was a little bit disturbed by that. But otherwise than that, I liked the movie, and I think the acting was pretty good. It's been a couple of years since it was done, so but I think it's aged pretty well.
Yeah, I like the movie overall too. I have problems with the first half of the movie, and we can get into that a little bit.
Yeah.
But once the Cujo siege starts, with the car not being able to start anymore, I think the cast, I think Dee Wallace and Danny Pintero are fantastic as the mother and son trapped in the car, and the movie really rests on their shoulders. So, especially Danny Pintero, you have to remember he was just 6 years old at the time, and he does a fantastic job. And it's a very natural relationship between him and Dee Wallace. They really feel like a mother and son in the movie, and I just think that they really sell the back half of the movie once Cujo's got them trapped in the car. So that part of it I really liked. I did have some troubles with the first half of the movie. I thought the setup to get there took a bit too long, and I think part of the problem was they didn't make the B storyline, if you will, with the father with his ad agency, that whole serial thing. They didn't make that interesting enough to power the lead into the Cujo thing. So I think they should have done more with that, and they didn't make it clear exactly why Donna Trenton would have an affair. So.
Yeah, and I think they revealed a little bit too early that she and Steve had an affair. I think the first scene where you see those two together, you notice immediately that there's something going on there. Yeah. And I think they should have held off on that for a while.
Yeah, and they needed to work that a bit more, that whole storyline, because it doesn't make her character seem very sympathetic to us. She just seems to be having an affair just for the heck of it. They don't explain why she's doing it. So that was probably my biggest problem with the first half of the movie. The B stuff was not interesting enough to make us feel enough for her character. I mean, you really feel for her because it's her and her son, but as for her, you're not really sympathetic towards her. It was an interesting fact that the man that she was having the affair with was her real life husband, so maybe that's why it came across so early in the movie that they were lovers. So
yeah, I agree.
I really wanted to revisit this movie because I think the book has probably, because it's interesting, Cujo, I almost feel like I should start playing the music from Jaws here, because this movie did for dogs what Jaws did for sharks. I mean, people who haven't even read the book, they hear the word Cujo, they know exactly what you're talking about. Talking about a rabid dog. So King really struck a nerve with this. And he wrote this book and Pet Sematary. This was in a dark period of his career. In the book, spoiler, I should say that if you haven't seen the movie or read the book, we are talking spoilers here.
If you haven't read the book, it's about time to do so.
Yes. I think the statute of limitations have run out right now.
Yeah.
The boy in the book died. And interestingly enough, when the book was optioned to be a movie, King wrote the original screenplay for it. And we were talking about this before we started the podcast. That if anybody out there has that, we would love to see it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, but he decided that Tad dying at the end of the book was too dark, and so he rewrote the screenplay, and Tad lived. Now, interesting enough, when the director came on, he found that King's version strayed too far from the book, so they rewrote it, but they kept in the changed ending, which they agreed with. So I'm wondering, Hans, when you read the book, I know it's been a while, but did you find it too dark that the boy had died?
No, I actually like it better when you don't always get the happy ending and everybody lives happily ever after. I think it's a bit cowardness to change the ending. I mean, this was the ending that was done, so why change it? I think the audience can live with it. Let's look at when Frank Darabont did The Mist and the ending there. I mean, some people hated it, some people loved it. I loved it, by the way. And
you're a dark person.
I'm a dark person. I think that was a great ending. It was the best ending in a movie I've ever seen, actually, probably. So well, that's just me. But so I don't think they should have changed the ending. I think they should have stick with the one from the book.
When I first read it way back in the 80s, I agree with you. I totally did like that ending, but now that I'm older, I don't know, maybe I'm getting softer, but I actually like that they changed that ending because I think you have to give the audience a payoff. Now, obviously, with The Mist, they didn't do that, but for this type of story, for a family story, I don't know. I kind of, about a family trying to get back together, I think you have to give them a payoff here. So I did enjoy the change. There was another change that he did in the movie that was interesting as well. In the book, it was never really directly stated, but there was the implication that the spirit of Cujo was inhabited by Frank Dodd, who remember was the serial killer from Stephen King's other book, The Dead Zone. So rightly so, I think they made the correct decision to tone down that aspect of the movie because you have to condense things when you're making movies from books, and I just think that this is something that would have been too hard for them to properly carry out in the time that they had for the story to unfold in the movie. So I don't know what you think about that, Hans.
Yeah, I think it's always complicated when you tie in with another book or another movie because the ones seeing this movie may not have seen the other one. So I agree that I think was a correct decision to leave that up.
And one of the reasons why I wanted to review this Blu-ray is because when I saw Cujo in the theater and waiting for it to come out back in those days in home video, and then it came out on pan and scan, and I tried to watch it, and it was just a horrible quality, and it ruined the film because there's a lot of shots that are set up for you to be looking one way, and then the action comes from the other side of the screen.
Yeah.
And the pan and scan just totally defeated those shots. So I never watched it all the way through. I gave up, and I haven't seen this movie in decades. So to see it on Blu-ray was a revelation. Overall, the film quality is pretty solid, and I think it's just a re-release of the DVD. It's not a high-def remaster, but overall the picture quality is pretty good. It's softer in long shots, and you can see the film grain. But the close-ups are really clear, and overall, it looks really good on a widescreen Blu-ray.
Yeah, and I must say I really like the cover for it. Picture
Yes.
Cujo. This book has a tendency to look pretty silly in a lot of covers. If you look at different book covers from all over the world, you have a mix from a nice teddy bear to a monster that doesn't even look like a dog anymore. So it ranged from all of those. But I think they really got this one. It's a great cover.
Mm-hmm. And the aspects of the movie that I really liked Danny Pintero's performance, especially at the beginning in the early scenes, scene where he turns off the light in his bedroom and tries to make it to the bed before the light goes out. I thought that was really well done.
Yeah.
The only thing I know in the commentary, they built two sets. One was a regular size and one when he turned off the light that made the room look longer.
Exactly.
I just wish that when he had switched the light off, they had shown the room from Danny's perspective, so that when the light went off, the room could have stretched, and then he would have run, because they just did a quick cut, so he's at the room on one size, when the light goes out, the room changes to another size, so you kind of lose the effect of Danny being so scared that he's seeing the room become larger, the distance from the light switch to the bed. But I really like that scene, and it all ties into how kids are scared of monsters under the bed or monsters in the closet.
It's in my closet. Something's in my closet.
Too much junk food. Too much of the tube, guys.
Who's in there?
Tad, now there's nothing in this house that's going to hurt you. Now look what I see in the closet here, all right? I see clothing, I see a pile of blankets on a chair, a lot of toys that weren't put away, and your favorite over-the-hill teddy bear, who would probably be a lot happier... in bed with you. And that's it. Nothing else.
I saw him, really. He's in the closet. He has yellow eyes, and his mouth is about this long, and he has teeth, and they're curled like this. And he made sounds.
What kind of sounds?
What kind of sounds? Come on, try. What kind of sounds? Like what? Yeah, that'd scare me pretty good.
Really?
But he's all gone now, champ, see?
He's in there. I saw him. Really?
Tad, you saw him in your dreams. In your head, nowhere else. See, Tad, there aren't any real... Tad, listen to me. There's no such thing as real monsters. Only in stories. There's no real monsters, though.
Really?
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 I thought that was really well done.
Yeah.
The other shot that I thought was really well done, and it should be noted that Jean de Bont, famous cinematographer, was a cinematographer on this film. And one of the cool shots, that bedroom scene, he did a cool shot because he made the camera go over and around the boys he's dumping in the bed. So it was done in one complete shot, which is kind of cool. The other shot that he really did that was cool is in the car when the mother passes out after being attacked by Cujo. The camera spins slowly around from mother to son. She's in the front and he's in the back, and it keeps spinning, and then it spins faster and faster, and then she passes out.
Yeah.
That was a really cool shot, and basically they drilled a hole through the ceiling of the car and put a periscope through and manually rotated the camera for that shot, which kind of blows my mind at how well he lined it up, because he couldn't see what he was doing. I guess he must have marked it off on the roof where to stop the camera.
Yeah.
I thought that was a really, really cool shot as well. So, and the other shot I liked is there's a lot of misdirection shots in this one, but the best one is at the beginning when they stop there and she gets out of the car. And the camera makes you think that the dog's coming from her side of the car. But then she gets in the car and she's trying to help the boy get a seatbelt. And then Cujo attacks that side of the car. Yeah. That was a really well set up shot. And that's a shot that was totally destroyed on the pan and scan version. So there were some really good scary shots in here.
It was definitely. I really enjoyed the behind the scenes documentary.
Yeah, me too.
I like to see how things are done. And they really had taken the time to go through the movie, I think, when they went through some shots, and they talked about the different dogs they had playing Cujo. One that could jump on the roof, and one that could growl, and one that could. They seem to have a dog for every thing that he would have to do.
Yeah, and it seems, depending on who you talk to, you would get a different number as to how many dogs were actually used in the movie. Some people said 5, some said 7, some said 10. I think the one that knows for sure is probably the animal trainer, Carl Miller, I believe his name was.
And they actually had a suit one suit for a person who runs into the door. That was a person.
Yep.
And they had a suit for which they were going to put on the Labrador to use as Cujo in the fog, when the first time that, what is the name of the kid who owns Cujo?
Brett,
yeah, exactly. When he see Cujo sick for the first time in the fog, they were going to have a suited up Labrador playing Cujo. That they didn't, but it would have been fun to see how that turned out. I can't really imagine. I can't visualize how they can put a suit on the Labrador and make him look like a.
Yeah, I think that was the last desperation backup plan, that they didn't want to use unless they really had to.
Something I reacted on as well was the ending of the movie when the family is reunited. It just ends. It's like a clean cut, and I was a bit surprised. Often movies doesn't end that quickly.
Right.
Well, we told our story. Bye.
So did you like that or not?
I'm not sure. I think I would have liked to have had something more, but I don't really know what that something more should have been. So maybe it was best not to have it. I don't know. It took me a bit by surprise to just end it like that. So but I
didn't mind that.
No, I'm not sure I did either. I can't decide that.
Once he sees her with the boy, then basically you know that everything is going to be all right with the family, and so the story's over. So anything after that would just be filler. So
yeah, right. Yeah,
I like that. So featurettes, there's 3 of them, and it's kind of like the initial phase, pre-production phase. Then you actually have a segment on the during the actual shooting of the film, and then you have a third segment on the post-production, which is the editing and music and that. So it's done by Laurent Bourgeot, who, if you're into DVDs at all, he's done quite a few behind-the-scenes specials. Definitely worth checking out.
Yeah. And
the other thing that was really cool to find out is, and it's kind of funny now unintentionally, because the car in the movie that breaks down is a Pinto, which, has gained a reputation as a lemon. So I don't think at the time they knew that, but it was kind of funny. I always get a chuckle out of when I see her driving that Pinto around. I says, well, of course she's going to have problems.
Yeah.
One of the things that strikes you too is this is one of those stories that will not work in today's world with cell phones and things of that nature.
Yeah.
Without getting really hokey.
You would have seen her picking up the phone and no signal would have shined. So.
Yeah, or battery dead or something like that. Yeah. So this is one of those stories that wouldn't work in today's age unless you change it around quite a bit. So
yeah.
It's a very simple idea, and once they get to the car, it's a movie well worth seeing. It'll never be a top quality high-tier Stephen King movies, and we actually have a question in the viewer's mailbag about what our favorite King movies are, so we'll leave that until that point.
Yeah.
If they could have tightened up the first half of the movie, and I think they should have shown with the serial that they kind of just talked about it. If they could have actually shown, well, that would have been a gross scene.
Yeah.
One of these poor kids looking like they think that they're bleeding because of the dye in the cereal.
Yeah.
Like you could have seen a toilet bowl full of red blood or something like that.
Yeah.
That probably would have driven it home a bit more.
Yeah.
So you could almost feel the film was just straining to get to that car.
Yeah.
And I don't think they quite set things up properly, but once you get there, it is definitely worth checking the movie out. And it'll probably never look any better than it has now, unless they do a total cleanup and remaster of it, which I doubt given its low key visibility compared to the other King movies.
Yeah, it's probably a bigger chance that we get a remake of it.
Yeah, the way things are going, no doubt.
Yeah.
And they could probably do a lot more amazing things with a dog and CGI nowadays. Poor St. Bernard had like peanut butter and whites and whatever slathered all over his face.
And of dirt on his back.
And a lot of dirt. Hans, you got a dark streak, but you also have a clean streak. Okay.
I have to ask you as well. Did you recognize Joe Chamber, the actor that played him? Ed
Loud?
Yeah. Did you recognize him from any other King movie?
He's been in so many things. I probably should know this, but no, I don't. What else was he in?
He's playing the general in Golden Years.
Oh, was he?
Yes.
Oh, okay. See, that's something I haven't watched in a long time.
Yeah.
So.
Maybe we should check that out.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
This was filmed in Northern California with a totally Mormon crew, which was interesting, but Louis Tigg was very impressed with them all. He said they were very hard workers. The house was totally fake. It was just a facade. There was no interior to it. The interiors were filmed at another house. Is there anything else that you wanted to mention?
One thing that we can mention is that it was actually shot during a cold season. So even though they are sweating and very hot in the car, they are actually very frozen.
Yes, yeah. And the scene where she's putting water on Danny to revive him, he said they actually used hot water because it was cold.
Yeah.
So
that's interesting because that's actually very, very well done. I didn't notice anything like that when I watched the movie, so they really succeeded with that.
I know. Oh, and the other thing about the actor Danny Pintero that played Tad, 6 years of age, he couldn't read, so his mother would read the lines to him and he would just memorize them. So that's really amazing.
That's impressive.
It's a very impressive performance by him, and I'm kind of surprised that we never really heard of him after this. He did a couple other things, I think, but he's not really doing much now anymore. But it's interesting to see him as an adult, compare him to what he looks like as a child. You see him on the behind the scenes stuff. And we also see Douglas E. Winter, who's done one of the many autobiographies on Stephen King, I believe.
A very good book about Stephen King. It's outdated now, but it's if you want to check out the early works of Stephen King, that's definitely a book you should check out.
Okay. So there you have it. Got anything else, Hans?
No, that's it. Great movie. Check it out.
Yeah, it's a solid movie. It's not up with the top ones, but it's very competently done. And Louis Tigg, the director, says it's his all-time favorite movie that he worked on. And with that, we'll give you the same blessing that Tad's mom says to Tad, and says,
Okay. Overdone with gone, right?
Overdone with gone.
And now on to Marv's mailbag.
I got one off your site. I don't know if you've got this one. It's from Chrono, and he says, "Hey guys, as a big Stephen King fan, I have been enjoying listening to your podcast." Well, thanks lots, Chrono. We enjoy putting them out. What are your thoughts on the potential film adaptation of The Stand to be directed by Ben Affleck?
I actually have pretty high hopes on this one. It won't be as full as the TV series or as the book, because this is a movie that maybe 2 hours, 2.5 hours, maybe.
Oh, they're not doing two movies?
I think they are doing one movie. I'm not sure what they're doing, but either way, I don't think it will. They won't be able to put everything from the book in it if they don't make a series for 2 seasons or something. But I think they might, if you could take it for like a version of the book and be happy with not getting everything, I think this could be good.
Yeah, I'm cautiously optimistic as well. I mean, Affleck's already directed a couple of pictures now. He's done 2 Dennis Lehane books, Gone Baby Gone and The Town. And he also, of course, wrote with Matt Damon their initial film, Good Will Hunting. So he definitely has the capabilities. The issue is, can he handle such a sprawling big story, and that we have no way of knowing until we see the finished product. But I'm cautiously optimistic. Could be in the hands of somebody worse, that's for sure.
Definitely. Okay, we have some more questions from Facebook. We have Alex Callahan, interesting last name.
Spelled differently,
Yeah.
but
What do you consider to be King's greatest work, and which novel will stand the test of time? Also, which is your favorite short story by Stephen King and why? Okay, 2 questions. Which of his books are his greatest work and will stand the test of time?
for me, his greatest work is the Dark Tower series, and the novel that will stand the test of time is, unsurprisingly, based on our poll results, The Stand.
Yeah, I agree. I think
And we already know your favorite short story.
exactly. Well, I think The Stand will be the one that's mostly remembered. But I think he has a lot of other stories as well, like Shawshank Redemption, like The Stand By Me, the movie based on the body. So I think he will be remembered for other movies. I think he will be remembered on 2 fronts, one with the scare one and one with the stories and movies definitely that people like, but maybe don't know that it's by Stephen King. So I think it's a double.
Yeah, greatest work because it's obviously 7 books and ties all of his other books together. But there's just a lot of people that are not going to read that series for one reason or another. Whereas The Stand is one self-contained book. It's a big book, especially if you read the extended version. But it just covers the basic good versus evil story and the end of the world. And those type of stories will resonate longer and are more timeless. So I just think that will be his best known over the time. My favorite short story, and I think I've mentioned this in the previous podcast, is The Raft. I just love that simple idea of these 4 kids being stuck on a raft and this black oil slick is devouring them. I just think it's a very creepy, powerful little story. I know they did a version of it for Creepshow, but again, this is one of those stories you would love to see done again with better effects.
Yeah, so. That's not the best short story movie version.
No.
Yeah. Okay, we have another question from Henrik Nielsen. What are your favorite film adaptation from King's work and why?
Okay.
My favorite is probably The Mist, as we have talked about.
And Mr. Dark strikes again.
Yeah. I really like the ending. I can't stress that enough. I got goosebumps when I looked at it the first time. I think it's genius. and not just that it's a horrible ending, and I mean I have kids myself, so it's definitely a horrible ending, but the real twist is if you look closely on the trucks with the survivors going by, you can see the woman that in the beginning of the book wants to get home to her children, beginning of the movie, wants to get back to home to her kids, and nobody want to help her home. And she was actually the one that survived. So that's an interesting twist, I think.
For me, it's my favorite movie all the time. And again, I've mentioned this before, is The Shawshank Redemption. And I just think that it's the ultimate story about hope. And the movie just captures that so well. And of course, Morgan Freeman's narration just elevates the whole story. And it's a movie when I'm feeling down or depressed or blue. It just I watch it and I just feel energized about things again, and it just lifts me up every time I watch it. I also have to give strong mention to some other movies because, and one of the things when you do these lists, you think, oh, that he just did that, but there are some other great films. Yeah. Stand By Me is a fantastic film about growing up. Misery has some fantastic performances from James Caan and of course Kathy Bates. Yeah. And I love The Green Mile, another movie that Frank Darabont almost 99% captures the book correctly. He just makes 1 or 2 changes that I don't like, but beyond that, I just get a fantastic story. And my guilty pleasure is Maximum Overdrive. I mean, AC/DC and runaway trucks and carving knives. I sometimes I just love to watch that movie just for a hoot.
I actually like that movie a lot. Me too. I do. I don't.
It's so bad.
I don't understand why people don't like it. I mean, what's not to like about it? You can't take.
Come on, it's got AC/DC.
Yeah,
right?
You can't take it too seriously. I agree to that, but I mean, it's great entertainment. It is.
Okay. Do we have any more?
We have one from David Dis-A. I think that's his name. The first book you guys read, a book you don't like, if any. I guess that's 2 questions. First book you read, and is there a book you don't like? You want to go first?
Sure. First book I read, I'm pretty sure was The Shining, and the book I read that I didn't really like was Tommyknockers.
Yeah. My first book was Carrie. I got it for Christmas when I was 13 or something. And the book I didn't like was actually Fateful. I didn't like that one at all.
Well, that's not really a storybook though. That's a journal,
okay,
right?
if there's a book that I didn't like, I might go with Tommyknockers, but I don't think it's as bad as everybody says. It's not my favorite book, but I think it's okay. This was a hard one. I'm gonna go with Roadwork. Yeah,
Roadwork.
I didn't like that one. I haven't read it in quite some time now, but I remember when I read it probably 50 years ago. I find it hard to get through.
I'm gonna have to start rereading all these things just so I can answer these
Yeah.
questions better. People are going trying making us go way back. You know,
it's gonna take some time though. It's a lot of books to read.
Yeah.
We have 2 more questions. One from
Wow.
Georgette Stamble, who wants to know if Stephen King was aware of the poll where 10,000 fans voted for the book. I don't know if he was. I didn't tell him, so I don't know if anyone else.
You what? What? You didn't pick up the phone and call him? Say, hey, Steve.
You have to go and vote for their favorite book. No, I didn't. So I don't know if he did. Hopefully he did. And also there's suggestions that we could do the same for characters, and so we might do that. And we have a last question from Michelle Francis Petit. How does the graphic novel adaptations compare to the original novels? Are the comic book faithful to the novels? I'm not exactly sure which comic she is referring to, but I'm guessing The Stand or The Dark Tower. And I think The Stand is pretty faithful to the book, and I think that's actually my favorite of the 2. I like the illustrations in it, so that's my favorite. So I like that one.
That series is finished in comic book form now, right?
Yes, it is.
I haven't read it yet, so I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, and you can look for Lilja's library in it. I actually got a cameo. I actually got a cameo in that one.
Cool.
Yeah, it's a sign when Nick is in town. There's a sign saying Lilja's library. That's pretty cool.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So very good.
And The Dark Tower, I think some of the comics isn't based on the books. It takes
an extension.
Yeah, exactly, between the books. But I think they have. I haven't read the last issues now, but I think they have started to adapt the first book as a comic.
Oh, really?
So, but okay. I haven't read those myself yet, so I'm not sure how well they translate from the written book.
They're extensions, so they're filling in gaps. When we had Bev on when we reviewed Went Through the Keyhole, he mentioned that if there was any question about whether or not the comic books are canon or not, he said that because of what happens in the Went Through the Keyhole, it conflicts with some of the storylines they've done in the comics. So you should treat the comics for the Dark Tower as alternative universe.
Yeah, but I like them. I like The Stand better than the Dark Tower, but they are both enjoyable.
Okay. Anything else?
No, that's what we have for questions this time.
Alrighty. So I just want to reiterate, please keep those questions coming in. You can either send them to the Facebook page, or you can put them on Lilja's site when he posts the podcast, or you can email them to info@lilyas-library.com. And once again, that's info@lilyas-library.com. Or we just started up a Twitter account for the podcast, the Lilja, Lija, and Lou, LLU podcast on Twitter, and you can post questions there as well. Plus, if you want to do an audio recording of a question, that would be fantastic, and you can just attach it as an email and send it to the Lilja's Library email, and we'll be glad to play it on the podcast. So we're waiting for our first audio question, so folks, if you want to be famous, this is your chance.
Yeah, your chance to be the first one to ask a question in audio. Yeah.
With that, I want to thank you very much, Hans, for joining me again for another podcast.
Thank you. It was my pleasure.
I'm having a lot of fun doing these, listeners. I hope you're enjoying them. And till then, Hans, you want to take us out?
Sure. Stay safe, but stay scared.